Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TheBotTalk for episode 14. We have a very exciting episode for you guys. Quickly before we start today's episode, we have two sponsors for today's episode. We have Plugged AIO, which is a mobile iOS Supreme and Shopify bot. They have a huge announcement coming up on this weekend. So what I want you guys to do is go check them out down below. I'll leave their socials in the description. Go check them out. Go turn on post notifications. A very big announcements coming up. They've actually got a countdown on their website as well. So I highly suggest you guys go check that out. And also for the second sponsor, we have Notify. Notify being one of the most premium and dominant groups within the community at the moment. They have blazing fast monitors, top tier group buys, toolboxes for all users, the access and a dedicated support team, all for the users. Access are $50 a month. Go check them out. Links will be down below. Let's jump straight into today's episode. Jumping straight into today's episode, guys, we have Jason, other known as Tofu from NSB. They just dropped a brand new update. I will go ahead and link their socials down below, but we are covering an episode in correlation to their new update. We're going to learn about Jason, his past with NSB, his overall reselling journey, and also dive into NSB 2.0 and see what it has to offer. And we may have something in store for all the viewers later on in the episode. But jumping straight in to the first question that we ask all our guests on the show: how did you get into reselling?
Oh, thank you very much for having me. Now, I certainly got into reselling probably in the year of 2015, where I had saw a bit of a market available because Supreme wasn't attainable within the country that I'm from, which is in New Zealand. Obviously, you need to be a local with a local credit card and billing address and shipping to be able to cop Supreme. So I had friends based in the UK and the US at the time, and saw the potential value when the Supreme Air Jordan 5 had come out, or was about to release, and then approached the overseas friends and asked them to give me a bit of a hand in copying these pairs of shoes for me, and from there managed to bring them back into New Zealand and had them consigned. Saw the profit potential, and then it all goes. I guess it all stems from there. The rest is history.
Well, that is interesting to hear. I actually did not know that Supreme was not available to New Zealand back in 2015. But I'm assuming that because of the lack of availability of Supreme of certain brands, the market was quite more expensive for people that wanted to buy items on the aftermarket. And it kind of goes very well into the next question. What were some of the main motivations behind continuing to resell?
Well, my priorities have changed over the number of years. So I guess 2 years ago, I had a family of my own. Last year as well, I had purchased my first home. So right now, I'm kind of crippling in debt. So that's probably the one main driving factor, is to be able to support my family and to be able to, I guess, uh, keep on top of this mortgage, as well as having the additional benefits and still being able to go out and eat at restaurants, and to spend some extra time doing outdoor activities with my daughter. So we're not completely budget bound per se.
Just dissecting your answer just for a second, you're going a bit off script. You mentioned how this whole reselling thing, that all the money that comes from it goes to helping towards funding your house, which, by the way, congratulations on buying the house. Very nice thing to hear. But something that I wanted to actually talk about is, do you actually have a day job, or is this your main source of income?
Oh, no. So definitely reselling is a bit of a side hustle for me. So uh, I'm a chef by trade. Ironically enough, I know the term chef is used quite commonly within the sneaker community and botting community. So I am the sous chef of Intercontinental Hotel in Little Wellington, New Zealand. So I've been there for quite a number of years, and so yeah, that is my day job. And at night, or in the wee hours of the morning, I try to stay up. I try to stay up and try to go for some releases based in the US as well as the EU.
Well, it's nice to hear that you have a certain duality in your personal life. You have the successful reselling side and a successful day job. That's really awesome to hear. Obviously, that helps towards funding your house and helping your family, supporting your family, like you mentioned before. But moving on to the next question, one thing that all people go ahead and do before they get into botting is they bridge the gap. And what I mean by that is, when you first go for shoes and reselling and creating this aftermarket knowledge for yourself, most people are manual users. How did you go from being a manual user to discovering bots and using bots on a consistent basis?
So from 2015, from the first few drops of Supreme and obviously bringing those products into the country, and seeing the potential profit margins come into fruition. Now, obviously, I've been collecting sneakers for a number of years, let's say onwards of a decade. Now, everything was everything was for personal pairs. And when I got, say, tired of a pair and ended up selling them on to friends or actually reselling them, seeing that profit as well. Now, every attempt at my at copying personal pairs was always met with say side comments from other users or for other friends who were trying to cop, saying, "Oh no, bots took stock." So bots were always prevalent within my I guess life of trying to cop sneakers. I certainly got into botting in early 2018 actually, where I was introduced into, say, the whole Discord community, into cook groups, as well as introduced into NSB beta, in fact, and was invited to test their beta product. And then it all just started from there. So early, say, late May 2018, I'm quite a late user of bot.
Well, that's awesome to hear. It's awesome that you embraced the whole botting community and you took it from there and kind of expanded your knowledge of the aftermarket and essentially maximize your profit from using bots. But how did you discover NSB and how did you go from being a user of the bot to working for them?
So when I had joined NSB in May 2018, initially I was approached by a cook group, or invitations were sent out from this cook group to join NSB beta and to stress test this product. Going from a few months of testing this product, and between NSB going from beta to public release, myself as well as a few others were approached by the staff of NSB to form, I guess, in a way, a bit of a dedicated support group, because we were the more experienced users of the product. So a bit of a support group for the Discord server to help new users, to help even just answer basic questions as well, and as well as to help people set up for potential releases. So following that, that happened for a few months, and then following from there, the transition between going from, I guess, a support user to a formal staff member of NSB, say roughly about 5 months ago, I was approached by Nanik himself, whom had asked me to be a release model, to see if I was interested in being a release mod in a formal paid position in NSB. And that required simply just writing release guides, formalizing, say, keywords for the bot and for the users to use as a guideline to be able to help them go for releases as such. It all stemmed from there. I guess just being a long time user of the product tends to have its side opportunities in the future.
Yeah, I definitely kind of agree with that. Kind of relating to myself, when I first got into the whole reselling game and botting game, I discovered a Supreme bot. I went ahead and used it, created a couple of guides, and I actually got recruited by them. And I feel like in the community right now, if you have users of a bot or a service or tool that are consistently using it and being successful and are actually compassionate about the product, the owners will recognize that, and that is one way to get recruited to these bots. And it definitely does work. It worked for myself, it worked for countless others. And as you guys just heard, it worked for Jason as well. That's always good things to hear. Moving on to the next question. When you did get recruited to NSB, what were the beginning days like? How was the stress load? How was the atmosphere? Overall, what was your experience?
Absolutely scary. Absolutely scary. So, Nanak had essentially placed me on a 1 month probationary period where he would oversee my guides. And I mean, it's no easy feat to do the amount of research that you do as a release mod, to ensure keywords are right, and to hold that, I guess, form of responsibility towards the many users of a product. To be fair, it's quite daunting. um, so the first beginning days and the first beginning months were certainly very stressful. But with the support and guidance of the rest of the team of NSB, managed to slip through, managed to get there, I guess, by the inch of my hairs. And now it's nowadays it's a lot easier, um, because there are the usual protocols and the usual tips that people do know, that go hand in hand within, say, certain websites or certain platforms. Yeah, very stressful overall.
Yeah, I definitely do agree. It is daunting to most people just because of the fact that you are influencing a lot of the users' knowledge and knowledge that they will base their own tasks and setups on. So if you do tell them the wrong thing or tell them to run the wrong setting, then it can overall affect a huge percentage of the bot success. So it is definitely a task that shouldn't be taken lightly, and the appropriate time, effort, and knowledge should be used towards putting these successful and intuitive guides together just so the users can maximize their success overall, but more success into the bot and create the bot image in a better light. Moving on to the next question. What were some of the valuable things you learned from working for NSB?
In terms of the positive things for working for NSB during my time, number one, I think, is probably the amounts of new acquaintances that I have gained along the way, in this, almost 1.5 years of being a part of the NSB Discord community. Um, Now, acquaintances and also friends. It's uncanny how much of a bond you can actually form during your time spent. I mean, because we do spend a great deal of time, within Discord servers while we are trying to go for releases as such. Um, the biggest thing about gaining those friends as well is the ability to reach out, ask for help from those friends as well. See, I do have a couple of users within the support team who do also help me from time to time, say, getting some Supreme items. Because again, still I'm not able to purchase from New Zealand myself, as well as reship them over to me. And obviously there is a bit of say commission or even a proxy that goes back to them. So it's a bit of a win-win situation. I guess secondly, in terms of working for NSB, uh, it would be to test my patience in a way. Now there are a lot of new users who do come through. Um, and of course, the questions do get a bit repetitive at times. Um, and I guess it's probably dependent on my sleep levels as well during the day. But sometimes it does, the patience wears a little bit thin. But in a way, I need to just remember that I'm providing a bit of a support for them, and that everyone needed to start somewhere, um, and everyone probably had exactly the same questions as these new users had in the past. So yeah, I just gotta keep on trucking along, and make sure that everyone has the best opportunity possible to go for whatever release that they really want.
Well, I'm glad you can also take benefits from being a support member and also benefit the user base, making them more successful with the bot and maximizing their success. But moving on to the next question. One question I do like to ask people with their professions and with their careers within this community: what are some of the positive things of working for NSB, and what are some of the negative things of working for NSB?
In terms of the positive sides of working for NSB, uh, we spend a great amount of time on Discord, of course, because we rely on feedback from other users, as well as feedback or any updates that may be pushed in real time during a release as such. During that time, I've grown a bit of a friendship base and a bit of a large acquaintance base of regular users who do go for multiple, well, almost all the popular releases. So it stemmed from there that we can almost help each other out, which is the best thing about it. So I've got a couple of support members that are based in EU as well as the US, who still to this day do help me attain some Supreme items and box them up and kindly ship them over to me in New Zealand. And from there, it can go hand in hand, kind of I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Whereas if they were wanting some support from little New Zealand or even Australia, I'm more than happy to go about of my way to help them. In terms of the negative aspect of working for NSB, uh, the biggest thing that can stick out in my mind at the moment is probably the sleep deprivation. We all know that 10 a.m. EST, 11 a.m. EST is the prime time to go for releases. Unfortunately, that's about 4 or 5 in the morning for me. And, depending on whether or not my young 2-year-old has gotten enough sleep that night, or she might wake up in the middle of the night, generally means a bad morning for me at work. Requires a couple of coffees just to get through the day. But nonetheless, overall, I can say that the positives certainly outweigh the negatives.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the positives do outweigh the negatives. I'm sorry to hear that the time zones are really tricky thing to work with. Obviously, 10 a.m., 11 a.m., those are kind of the prime time go times for all releases, for all shoes. And it kind of sucks that sleep deprivation is one of the elements, because I'm going to be honest, that isn't one of the main factors support members do talk about. Some of them complain about the user base not having knowledge, some of them complain about the repeated questions, but literally one of the base core elements of what a human needs, sleep. And that is one of the things that you've been deprived of for being a support member. So one thing I want everyone to take away from this episode: this guy is literally putting his sleep on the line to support the members within NSB. So that is something to be respectable for. He needs a round of applause for that, just because of the fact that it's one of those things that if you do sacrifice that, there is a lot of knock-on effects. Obviously, it goes down to health and maintaining health and stuff like that. So obviously, please keep that in mind when you do see him around the community. He's a very hard-working person, as you guys are discovering in this interview. Moving on to the next question. When NSB doesn't perform well on certain sites, how do the user base react to the support team? How is that whole type of community vibe?
This is probably the biggest negative effect, and not just in NSB, but I'm sure it happens across every single bot company. When it certainly doesn't go as expected, as planned. People tend to miss out. Customers tend to be disappointed, and they certainly like to illustrate their disappointment within their support channels. Quite frankly, it's disheartening. We can understand that developers, as well as support staff, spend a great deal of time preparing users for a release, and when it doesn't go as planned, we feel it as much as the users do as well, because obviously a company is built on success. And yes, while the users do rely on the success of the bot, uh, we as staff members, as well as the developers, do rely on that success too for the company to grow. So it does take a toll. It hurts it hurts the staff as much as the users do as well. And we can understand the frustration because we are as equally as frustrated too. But there just needs to be, I guess, a bit more of an understanding that look, it's tough, and while we do see the bad side of a company flopping on such a release, and while it might be glorified, say on social media channels, that another company has done the complete opposite, where they've done well. Look, we only see the success side of things. There in every company, in every bot, in every product, there would be an equal amount of unsuccessful users as well as successful users. Um, and I just hope that going forward that there is a bit more of that understanding. And to also know that, look, companies are doing everything they can to try and stop bots from prevailing, and hence why security companies can make millions of dollars per year. But just know that things aren't an easy fix, and that good things do take time. But just also remember that look, if it didn't do too well on one release, you should know that developers are doing everything that they possibly can to make sure that it doesn't happen the next time round.
Well, adding to your point that you just made there, and I feel like it's necessary for me to add this, people need to understand that developers of these bots, definition of these bots is automation software. Everyone knows that. Bots, by definition, are to increase your chances of buying the product. It never guarantees you to buy the product. They never advertise it to buy, guaranteed to buy the product. That's just how it is. That's how all bots work. And by definition, that's how all bots are defined. Now, one thing that people need to keep in mind is that when sites do these changes and sites flip the switch and add a couple of things to mess up the bot, the developers can't act immediately. You gotta understand that code does take time, finding solutions does take time, and some of these developers do have personal lives, they do have families, they have commitments outside of this whole botting thing, so it is hard to push out these updates automatically. And I feel like some developers do that. Some people, literally, I've seen developers push updates during drops so people can be more successful. But it's one thing to keep in mind that all these changes are just things that will happen, and the user base just needs to stick with all their teams, even if it's NSB of any bot of any kind. They just need to stick with their teams and make sure they understand the back end, because obviously it is a lot more stressful than just being a user. But moving on to the next question. You did mention that you and your support members do your best job to create a good environment within NSB and obviously support all the members within NSB. What is your opinion of the overall team at NSB?
I can't speak for the entire community, but these guys are certainly some of the most hardworking, charismatic, humorous characters that I have come across within an online community, and because we've connected on such a personal basis, and I guess it helps that we are almost within the same age group as well. That we've shared our personal lives together. We've shared ups and downs together as well. But look, these guys, the support team, the entire support team, as well as staff of NSB, I can't fault them enough. We've been going together and working together for well over a year now. So hopefully I can only see a promising future, and it's only going to continue from here on in. NSB was always its business model was always to be there and continuing in the long run. So I can only see positive things from here on in.
Well, I'm very excited for the future NSB. I feel like a lot of eyes on it with this new update, and we'll talk about the new update in a second here. But for the final question, If you could give any advice to anyone who's wanted to join a bot team or a service team or a group team, what were some of the characteristics or skill sets you think they'd need to join these teams?
Biggest characteristics we can probably say is to always try to remain positive, regardless of how bad your day has gone, or how unlucky some users have been on a release. Maintain that positivity, keep that energy, because well, I'm a firm believer of karma. That, if you have a positive energy around you, that next release you could just be luckier next time round. To grow, as well as to grow a bit of an understanding from users, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. Sometimes you might even spend more time talking to these guys and to these users, more so than your own family, at the worst of times anyway. So get to know one another, connect with them and engage with them on a bit of a personal level. That just makes owning a said product a little bit more special. And then I guess finally, in terms of joining bot support teams or even potential support, staff teams, be ready for the amount of work that comes into it, because it does take a great deal of your time, like I said previously, and you need to do a vast amount of research, and don't let that pressure of it's this guide or my answers are going to be, I guess, oh no, don't let that pressure of say punching out a release guide, to know that everyone is somewhat relying on your knowledge base as well as your information, to cop. Don't let that get to you. Sometimes mistakes happen. We are human, after all. You always will learn from your mistakes, and you only get out what you put in at the end of the day. If you really are committed to wanting to provide such a service and information to a large user base, like I said, you just have to be ready to work hard.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you there. All those qualities are definitely needed, along with loads more. But I think if you're dedicated to the brand and you are successful and you know how to present yourself with these bots, then you have a very high likelihood of being picked up for these bots and representing their brand in the good. Moving on to the last section of today's interview. NSB 2.0 just dropped. At the time of this recording this video, it literally just dropped. We're recording it on Tuesday night GMT time, so it did just drop a couple of hours ago. Very exciting release. Bought by Nova jumped on the launch of it, live streamed to YouTube. Hundreds of people watching. Very, very exciting. When did you first hear about NSB 2.0 actually becoming a reality, and what were your initial thoughts?
We were first introduced to 2.0 when Cypher had pushed a beta link to a select number of, well, a large group of users to stress test this product back in early August. Obviously, everyone's excited for new features. Everyone's excited for new site support, and to be able to. My initial thoughts on 2.0, when I was first testing it, it was great to see developers be able to adapt, and listen to user suggestions of what they would like to see happen in the bot. The biggest thing I think that made the difference was Adidas support that we had found, as well as, now I know that other companies already do have this. It's a prominent feature, but initially NSB didn't have that from the very beginning. Was multiple size selection, and which is certainly a key factor in reduce the number of tasks that you have focused on particular sizes, so you could run multiple sizes from there. And I was also, along the way of stress testing too, I was very excited to hear that NSB 2.0 was looking into getting a UI upgrade, which now obviously the product has been pushed. It's predominantly met with positive feedback. I think it's a lot easier on the eyes. It runs a hell of a lot smoother than its predecessor. And so overall, we're all very excited to see new features of a bot, and it's always refreshing to know that when new features are pushed, that they need to undergo a bit of testing first before it's pushed out to public. But it's also an indication that the company is here to stay, and that listening and also providing proactive feedback from the user base has its benefits.
Well, that is really nice to hear that you were excited for some of these features going into it. It was nice that the team ironed out all the kinks before the initial release of 2.0 just to create that successful launch so people could go ahead and use it and maximize the success. And currently, right now, as I said, the update just dropped. We are still waiting to see if success on a release that's actually worth it, like a big release. So we'll see how that goes. But moving on to the next question. What were some of the big differences between NSB and NSB 2.0 that were your favorite?
So the key difference is, now I've already said this, with the refreshed UI changes, probably one of my more favorite changes between the two versions. It runs hell of a lot smoother. It looks a lot better as well. Secondly, now this is probably everyone's most anticipated feature of NSB 2.0 is the ability to be able to integrate your cook group monitors, which is super handy. Obviously, we join cook groups for said monitors. Some monitors are faster than others. Some monitors are certainly faster than NSBs. Now that we have this ability to integrate these monitors within NSB, it has helped tremendously. Sometimes NSB doesn't quite, an NSB monitor or another monitor per se doesn't quite catch a product. The other monitor does. So long as you've got them set up and ready to go, it's quite fantastic. I think more recently, prior to the 2.0 launch, I know that I was sleeping at about 4:30 in the morning, and that morning I had a few hours later, had woken up to a couple of emails of some checkouts. So no, I can't say any negative on it. It is such a great feature to see, such a great feature to have finally implemented for public release, and I can only hope that everyone else has exactly the same feedback.
Yeah, I definitely do think the users are very excited for all the changes. I personally am as well. So it'll be very exciting to see how the user reacts to that and how it affects the overall success. But moving on to some of the last questions here. In preparation for NSB 2.0, was the stress load increased as a support member? What were overall the run-up changes to your support life before 2.0 dropped?
For myself, it wasn't overly too bad. We unfortunately, as much as, well, no, let's just say, Cypher had kept things a little bit secret. He didn't want too much information going out on what was in store for 2.0. So my stress load wasn't too bad. It was just the forever questions of, when is 2.0 being released? When is 2.0 being released? We want 2.0 now. And to be able to tell our users, look, we are testing it. The kinks need to be ironed out. Just know that it's not too far away. And I think 3 months of testing overall wasn't overly that bad in hindsight. From what I know from Cypher, the whole period when 2.0 was in beta was extremely stressful for himself and the developers, because it was as if they were developing and maintaining two entirely separate softwares instead of one, because we had our stress testing group as well as our 1.0 users. However, the advantage of that was that if anything was new or potentially experimental, it had that opportunity to be tested within that large beta testing user base. I think with the whole beta approach, uh, overall NSB was able to create quite an amazing, fully tested as well as bug-free 2.0 version for the public. Um, Obviously, if we were in a rush to release it, that may have been met with a lot of bugs and a lot of potentially negative feedback. But now that beta is over, it's great because now we can see developers as well as Cypher focus predominantly on one version only, and hopefully we'd be able to see double the productivity, double the efficiency, and speed of updates from developers encountering anti-bot measures in the futures to come.
Moving on to the final question of today's episode, with NSB 2.0 being pushed to all the user base, where can you see NSB going in the future?
Well, look, NSB was one of the first sneaker bots within the market. The earlier days where it was released in early 2013. Now, ever since then, we know that they've always been growing, that they've always been changing and innovating. The modern NSB we know of now launched late 2018, but NSB users, they don't simply just buy the bot or a certain version or a certain feature. They buy a whole team of and a whole dedicated team of incredibly experienced and talented developers, who have proven themselves reliable and consistent for the last 5 years. With the new update, I can only see NSB where it has always been, growing, adapting, innovating, and obviously, more importantly, cooking every release.
Well, guys, that concludes the interview part of today's episode. We're going to move on to the final event part of this episode. Stay tuned. Thank you so much to Jason for coming on this episode. Make sure you guys check him out. His links will be down below. Let's move on to the final part of today's episode. So for the final part of today's episode, guys, I'm dropping an NSB 2.0 key in the live stream. It can be really easy to get. You guys are just going to have to follow instructions on screen, and you guys are going to have to be quick. So essentially how this is going to work is I'm going to give you guys a part of the Discord invite. It is a Discord invite. You need to join Discord. I will contact you once you get in, but I will give you part of a Discord invite. Get that typed into Discord, and there will be 2 questions on screen. So go ahead and allow you to finish the invite. Go ahead and type in the remaining letters and join the server, and I will contact you and get your key and stuff like that. However, quickly before this challenge starts, I want you guys to all subscribe and like if you guys are enjoying the content. If you guys want to get some good luck on this key, go on and drop the subscribe button, typing hashtag subbed in the chat. The challenge will start in 30 seconds.